Planet Reddit. Today's story is...
My stepmother planted evidence to accuse me of theft. My father found her emails 5 years later. I am 23 years old and 5 years ago, my stepmother Chloe accused me of stealing her jewelry. As a result, my whole family turned their back on me. And not only that, my father even took my college fund and gave it to that liar, forcing me to start working. To give you some context, Chloe never liked me, and a few days after marrying my father, she accused me of stealing her jewelry box and selling all its contents. She planted evidence everywhere, like some of the supposedly stolen jewelry in my room at my father's house. She also put some receipts in my bag and things like that. It was all carefully planned. It was definitely not spontaneous. I am completely sure that she herself sold her jewelry to incriminate me, but nobody believed me. I tried to explain to my family that I hadn't done anything, that she was lying, but it was useless. They completely isolated me. They humiliated me and practically destroyed my mental health with their accusations. They haven't spoken to me in 5 years, but now that they know the truth, they want to make amends and ask me for a second chance. Even my biological mother, who had raised me mainly after her divorce, and my father, who had become my primary guardian, did not believe in me. My mother also cut me off at the time, and now she wants to talk to me. But I don't want to talk to either of them. I don't want to have any kind of contact with them at this point, and I have been very clear about that. I feel like my life is finally going well. I have a stable career and I am no longer mired in depression like I was for the past few years. The last thing I want is for my family to come back into my life. But my mother insists that at the time, with all the evidence against me, they had no choice but to believe Chloe. According to her, I can't blame them for that, and I need to forgive them so we can reconcile as a family. I don't share her point of view on the situation, so am I the bad guy for not wanting to reconcile with my family? Addition, hi, sorry but I really don't know how they suddenly found out the truth. I haven't even asked them because I know I would have to really talk to them to understand the whole situation. And I don't think I'm mentally prepared for that right now. I just want to concentrate on my work and on myself, nothing else. I don't want to have any relationship with my family, at least for now. Update 1. Hi, I got in touch with my mother again and made my final decision clear to her. I told her that I didn't want to talk to her at the moment, or to anyone else in the family, so they all needed to stop contacting me. Until now they had been sending me messages and calling me, and only because I had doubts about whether I was doing the right thing had I not blocked them. But now that I am sure that I don't have to talk to them if I don't want to, I proceeded to block them. I really feel as if a weight has been lifted off my shoulders, because lately I had been feeling very guilty about not wanting to talk to them. I thought about what my mother said, about how, given the circumstances of my strained relationship with Chloe and the supposed evidence they found, it seemed logical to believe that she was telling the truth. I tried to see things from that perspective, and for some reason I started to think that maybe, if I had been in her place, I wouldn't have believed myself either. But then I remembered that they knew me as a person. They literally raised me and knew me since I was a child. Like my family, they should have believed me, they should have known better. I was torn between these two perspectives, but at the end of the day, I'm going to do what I want to do. If I don't want to talk to them right now, I don't have to. Just because they feel bad now about what happened, they had 5 years to investigate things on their own, but they didn't. They didn't even try, and even now, they wouldn't have discovered the truth if my father hadn't stumbled across it by pure chance. So yes, I finally asked my mother how they discovered the truth before blocking her, because I was really curious. She told me that a few days before they all contacted me, my father had been using Chloe's laptop for work because his was being repaired. While he was working, he accidentally opened her email instead of his own, but before changing accounts, he noticed that she had a new email about some pending jewelry. Curiosity got the better of him and he decided to read that email. And unfortunately for Chloe, it was an email from the guy she had actually sold all her jewelry to. Apparently, there was one last item, some gold earrings that he had bought from her, but as they were really beautiful, he hadn't had the heart to melt them down and turn them into something else because the craftsmanship was excellent. But now, after 5 years, he hadn't sold them or done anything with them. He was retiring and closing the shop, so he wanted to know if Chloe wanted to get those earrings back. He even attached a photo of the earrings, and my father recognized them because, naturally, she had made such a fuss about all the jewelry that I supposedly stole and sold that my family remembered every single one of them. It wasn't difficult for my father to connect the dots, and he confronted Chloe. At first she tried to deny everything, but then she started crying, saying that I had always hated her. That she knew that if I had remained part of their lives, I would definitely have tried to ruin their marriage at some point. She told my father that she had recognized me for what I really was, someone interested in his money, and she didn't want me to ruin his life, so she decided to send me away. She tried to make it sound like she had done it for my father's sake, but now that the truth had come out, she could no longer continue to deceive him. He kicked her out of the house because even if we accepted what she said in her defense, that she thought I was constantly trying to get my father to spend money on me, it still didn't make sense for her to keep my education fund. Besides, it was a pretty ridiculous defense to try to make me look like a gold digger when I'm my father's only child. I wasn't even asking her for more money than she was already paying in child support. The only thing I was really expecting from my father was to cover my college tuition because I was planning to study out of state and I knew it was going to be expensive. I didn't want to work while I was studying because it would be too exhausting and stressful, and the degree I wanted was already quite difficult. I knew my father made enough money, so it wouldn't be a problem for him. And I didn't want to depend on my mother because at the time she was planning to start her own business. I don't understand how any of this would make me look like a gold digger, especially when the one accusing me was the real gold digger. Chloe literally quit her job a week after getting engaged to my father. She then framed me for stealing and selling all her jewelry, even though I know full well that she did it herself. She already had the money from that, which must have been quite a lot, because as far as I know, they were all her mother's jewels, and they were not only beautiful but also looked expensive. Then, after all the drama with me, I know for sure that she accepted the money from my education fund that my father decided to give her to apologize for my alleged behavior. I don't know what she finally did with all that money. But if we're talking about who was a gold digger, in the true sense of the word, it was definitely Chloe. Anyway, her defense didn't make sense, and my father could see through it. He kicked her out of the house, and according to what my mother has told me, she is now staying with her father and begging my father every day to take her back, but he has already filed for divorce. My problem is that they had 5 years to look into this, but they believed Chloe blindly. Even my own mother, who knew exactly what problems I had with Chloe, didn't take my side when it mattered. She, more than anyone, should have known that I wasn't a thief. So all these apologies don't mean anything to me anymore. What matters is that they gave my college fund to a liar, and even now they wouldn't have discovered the truth if my father hadn't opened her emails by accident. They trusted her so much that they didn't even think it was worth investigating further. They just took her word for it and cut me off from the family. After that, they never bothered to check up on me. I had to fend for myself, and I was completely on my own, and let me tell you, even though at 18 people consider you an adult, I was inexperienced, young and without money. So I felt as lost as I would have been if I had been younger. It was one of the most difficult times for me, and I don't think I would have survived on my own if it hadn't been for my friends. They couldn't afford to pay for my university, even though I had been accepted at my first choice, because it would be too expensive and their parents were already funding their education. I didn't want to depend on them in that way or be a burden by asking them to co-sign student loans, especially when I was already sleeping on their sofas. But fortunately, one of my friends had already decided to take a gap year and work for his father. He got me a job there too, and I started earning money, and soon I had saved enough to rent a flat and start living on my own. Since then, I have continued to work very hard and with dedication, and I am even in talks for another promotion in a couple of months. I achieved all of this on my own without any help or moral support from my family, so I don't think I should talk to them just because they finally realized they were wrong. If they had believed me at the time, I wouldn't even be in this position right now. I would probably be doing much better. I would have been able to go to the university I chose and work at the companies I wanted. I'm not saying that I'm not grateful for what I have now, but knowing that this is not my full potential, that hurts. I don't think I can ever forgive them for what they did, and I don't think I have to forgive them either. Just because they are repentant now doesn't mean that I'm suddenly obliged to let it all go. Now, if at some point I feel like I want to forgive them, then I might. If not, then I won't. And I refuse to feel bad about it either. My mother has no right to make me feel guilty for not wanting to reconcile with them, especially when she herself did not feel guilty about cutting me off so abruptly. She knew I didn't get along with Chloe. She knew Chloe had reason to incriminate me, but she still chose to believe that woman over me. I'm not exaggerating. For years after I was fired, I kept trying to understand why exactly these people believed her over me, especially when I had never lied in my life. All my life, I had always tried to be a good daughter to my parents, and even then that hadn't been enough. But when the moment came, they believed some random woman who happened to be married to my father instead of me. And yes, even considering that there was some evidence against me that Chloe had very cleverly prepared, they still didn't have enough reason to believe her. After all, it would have been very easy for her to frame me, especially when I wasn't even aware of what she was plotting behind my back. I wasn't alert. If we're going to use legal terms, all the evidence was circumstantial. And if Chloe had been so sure that I had stolen and sold everything, she should have gone to the police. I suggested it myself several times when it was all happening, but it was my family who prevented it from happening. Probably because they were too worried about the family reputation, just in case I turned out to be a thief. That's how low their trust in me really was. And the more I think about this situation, the angrier I get. So, whatever happens, I think they ruined it. And now they're just going to have to live with it. Update 2. Hi, I blocked my family a couple of days ago. To be clear, they had already been blocked for a long time. They had simply obtained my new contact information through other people. I don't know exactly who shared it. I guess some cousins or maybe friends, but regardless of the situation, they decided to contact me again. This time, they sent me a collective email saying that they were all really sorry for their behavior over the past 5 years, and that they should have believed me instead of dumping me like that. They told me that they really wanted to see me and make things right. And even if we don't reconcile immediately, they think it's worth at least giving it a try. I don't know what to tell them. So I just ignored that email. I've talked to some of my close friends about this. And they think I don't have to talk to them if I don't want to, just like everyone else, especially since it's taking me a long time to get over what happened. As I mentioned in my last update, I was depressed for a long time. And now I'm finally doing better after a lot of therapy and personal work. I don't want to ruin all that effort. So I really want to stay away from them. But at the same time, I also want to tell them exactly what I think because it's been 5 years. And I'm tempted to let them know exactly how I feel about them. I can still accept that my father and my paternal grandparents are naive enough to believe that they still have a chance. But it's my mother I'm really upset with. Even when everything was going wrong, I hoped she would be on my side, but she turned her back on me too. So more than anyone, I want to let her know that I was really disappointed in her. She should have stood up for me. I really want to tell her, but that would mean I have to talk to them. In my last interactions with them recently, I have been polite enough, but now they are starting to irritate me. And I feel that if they continue to upset me like this, eventually I will explode. And I really don't want to do that. It has taken me a long time to get where I am today, both emotionally and financially. And I don't want them to ruin it. But I think if they send another email after this one, then I definitely might explode. Also, now that I mention this, I feel like I should explain why I didn't get along with Chloe. A lot of people have been asking me how our relationship really started and how it got to this point. So I have to say that even though our relationship was never good, I never expected her to do something like this because it's really crazy. When my dad started dating her, I didn't like her anymore because I found her very pretentious. And I don't know, her vibes were just very strange. From the beginning, I just tried to avoid her and she did the same with me. So it's not like we had much of a relationship at first. But then, little by little, as her relationship with my father became serious, she started trying to control me and I didn't listen to her because I didn't really feel like I had to. She manipulated my father to try to make me follow her rules. They were small things, but even so she felt bad because she tried to control how I dressed, what I ate and even my curfew. At one point, it became too much for me. So I told her that I knew what she was trying to do. I knew she was trying to act like she was my mother, but at the end of the day, the fact is that she isn't. I actually have one mother and I don't need a second one. So I told her I'd appreciate it if she'd stop interfering in my life. She could marry my dad if she wanted, I had no problem with that, but I don't have to treat her like I treat my mom and I really don't have to obey her. I didn't fight with her or anything. I just put her in her place and from then on she started to dislike her. She never said anything to my father, but I guess she was just preparing for this big move after her wedding. And she succeeded in fooling my family. Now that I think about it, I'm pretty sure there was something seriously wrong with her because I can't imagine an adult woman having such a big fight with a teenager and then doing something so horrible just to get back at her for putting her in her place. Anyway, that's the kind of person my family chose to believe over me, and it's not like I didn't mention this in my defense. I tried to tell them that she had it in for me from the start and was probably trying to frame me, but they didn't believe me. They thought I was crazy and was just trying to blame her because I was too ashamed of myself. In reality, I am too ashamed of my family because I have to be related to idiots. Now I really hope they don't contact me anymore and just take the hint. Update 3. Unfortunately, my mother decided to show up at my house today. She told me that one of my cousins gave her my address, which I think is really out of line because she was someone I really trusted for the last 5 years and I knew that I didn't want my mother to show up. So this was a huge violation of my privacy, but I'll deal with that later. For now, I feel like I just have to talk about what happened with my mother. When she showed up a couple of hours ago in the afternoon, I was very tired after a long day at work. I told her to go away because I really didn't want to talk to her. But she insisted and told me she wouldn't leave until she had spoken to me because it had been 5 years since she had made that big mistake and she wasn't going to make another one by leaving now, as she had been trying to talk to me for a long time and it was time I listened to her. I didn't want to create drama, so I just let her in because I thought I could end this. Once inside, she hugged me, started crying and told me she was really sorry for everything. She said she had just been so shocked by Chloe's accusations. And because of all the evidence, she had really started to believe that maybe Chloe was telling the truth. She then told me that she had distanced herself from the family because she thought I needed to learn my lesson and start being disciplined. Only now, after discovering the truth, did she realize that she had made a big mistake and she just wanted to make up for it because I was her only daughter. She didn't think she could afford to lose me. And she said she knew that deep down I felt the same way, that I didn't want to lose her either. I told her that at the beginning I might have felt the same, that I didn't want to lose my mother. But in the last 5 years, I have learned to live without my family. And now it really doesn't make any difference to me. Then she started to cry, saying that she knew I was only saying this out of anger. And that she had every right to be angry because, after all, she had really disappointed me. But I insisted that I knew that wasn't true. She continued to hug me and cry. I told her that since she had given me the opportunity to talk to me, I really needed her to leave because I wanted to relax after work. Then she started to get annoyed. She told me that it had taken a lot of persuasion to get my cousin to give her my contact details and my address. And I knew she was annoyed with her, but even so there was no reason to be so rude. At that moment, I finally lost my patience. I told her that she and her ex-husband had practically ruined my whole life. If she had simply taken my side and told my father that I was telling the truth, then there could have been a proper investigation into the whole matter. And they would have discovered that Chloe had been lying all along. That way, I could have gone to university and had the life I wanted without having to fight so hard. So just because of her decision not to believe me, my whole life had been turned upside down. Like it or not, I didn't want to talk to her anymore, at least not right now. And if I wanted to reconcile with them at some point, I would go to them on my own. But for now, she would just have to accept that I didn't want to see her and leave my house. I was very upset. I shouted at her and she seemed shocked. But then she recovered and told me she could understand that I was very upset and that I would come back later, but that I had really hurt her. I didn't care in the least. I just told her I wanted her to leave. And finally she left. To be very honest, at this point, her apologies really don't mean anything to me. Whatever damage had to be done, has already been done. And saying sorry isn't going to undo it. I just want to move on with my life. I've already moved on halfway. What I needed was closure and I think I've received that too. So now, I really want to be done with all of this and I hope she doesn't come back soon, because I feel like I've already had a lot of stress and anxiety to deal with over the last few days. I don't need any more of that. Update 4. Hi, it's been 3 weeks since my last update and since then my family hasn't contacted me except for an email they sent me last week. Once again, it was a collective email from my parents and my paternal grandparents saying that they were really sorry for everything that had happened and that they would continue to feel it for the rest of their lives if that's what it takes for me to forgive them. They found out about my meeting with my mother and they know that I don't want to talk to them now, so they will stay away. But they really hope that at some point I can forgive them and that I will try to reconcile with them on my own. They also told me that my father, although he didn't show up himself, is more sorry than anyone because he thinks that all this could have been avoided if he had simply trusted me instead of his wife. He also apologized for ruining my chances of going to college and told me he was willing to write me a check so that at least now I can go, but I don't feel like accepting money from him right now, so I have decided to refuse it, at least for now. In the future I could forgive them, but I could also choose not to. I really don't know because I haven't made a decision as this is a very complicated situation. However, for now I am very happy with my life as it is, so I don't want to make any new changes.